So 4 teams have now become 2, and a trip to Wembley awaits, and a place in League One awaits the winner. Welcome back to 40th Fever. Hope you guys are doing well. Before we start having a look at the playoff second leg between Wimbledon and Notts and Walsall and Chesterfield, if you don't mind hitting that like button, subscribing if you're new around here, and make sure you download the podcasts wherever you get your podcasts from. And just a quick one from me before we start. The League One Lowdown, guys, have recorded an interview with now former Barrow goalkeeper, Paul Farman. If you want to go over there and check it out, that will be greatly appreciated. It's a very good interview. Of course, one for a couple of interesting points made in that interview as well, which if any Barrow fan is watching or listening, I'm sure it'll be you might be intrigued to know what he has to say, or if there's any Lincoln fans about, I'm not sure, but like they listen to League Two because they're all right in League One. But make sure you go and check that out, go and show it some love, and let's get on with this one. It's not been quiet. It never will be. It never has. And we now know our 2 finalists. One of Walsall or AFC Wimbledon will be joining Port Vale, Doncaster Rovers and Bradford City in League One next season. We've got Luke joining us to help me talk through the games and seeing his favourite side reach the showpiece final at Wembley Stadium, right in the heart of the capital. He must be buzzing.
Just wrong, isn't it? It's just wrong. But no, they've played well over their 2 games. To be fair, as I'm sure we'll discuss in a little bit, but it's just one of those things. Like I said, I'm now just sort of looking forward to the fact that if they do happen to go up, I think there's a very good chance they just come back anyway. Just because that's just the nature of League One right now. If you look at the teams that are starting to.
What was it you said? Double relegation, like everyone, like your Forest Greens of the world, your Carlisle United, double relegation. You think they're made of money?
Well, like I said, it's becoming a common thing for the teams with less secure financial situations to start struggling once they hit that sort of League One area, and it's becoming more and more apparent as the seasons go on.
Now you see, a part of me now sort of hopes they go back to back straight to the Championship. That'd be nice. It'll shut you up for one. It will shut. I'll tell you what. I wish Kieran was having some fun with AI the other day. And you wouldn't have seen it. It might get posted on Twitter. I might do it. You know what? If Wimbledon win the final, I'll post it on Twitter. I'll post it on the account. But there's like an AI. He's made like an AI image of Luke, in like an AFC Wimbledon shirt, inside Meadow Lane. I think the cat said, "I love Johnny Jackson" or something like that.
Words that no one has ever said.
And you still look like you were 12 years old on it. So that's not changed.
It does not look like me at all. I'm not having that. It looked like I'm like twice the weight that I am. It's like I've suddenly bulked up somehow.
There was one of them that looked like you were 50, and then there was one of them which look like you was about 10.
Yeah, just can't win apparently. But
there you go. If Wimbledon win the final, that's getting posted. We might even put that or lodge that under your FTF table punishment or whatever. Might even do it under that. Saves you buying me the shirt. It saves me a few quid.
That's true. To be fair, I'd be more willing for that to happen than the whole shirt thing. So I can handle that.
Just for a piece of art that Kieran's made online. Right. Okay. Let's have a look at these 2 games. Let's start with Walsall. Very good first leg, 2-0 up. Going away to Chesterfield and picking up a very good result. A worthy result, which meant that Chesterfield sort of had it all to do in the second leg at the Poundland Bescott Stadium. I think it's difficult at 1-0, at 2-0 in a playoff game. It does become a little bit of a struggle. And it was important for them that in the game, I think they needed that first goal, and I thought they probably should have. They probably needed it quite quickly, I think, to turn it around. Because to be fair, I think there has been times we were actually saying this that Walsall, I thought for parts of that game were quite defensively sound. I think there were parts in which Chesterfield were a little bit wasteful, but at the same time, I think it's that little bit in the final third where you probably see a couple of their players slipping or not quite making the right decision, um, which I noticed that a few times. I had the game on at work. I was somewhat taking half notice. It was just unbelievable that I'd turned it off after 85 minutes where Walsall 1-0 up, so I ended up missing 2 goals. But yeah, Charlie Lakin scored like 10 minutes to go. It was game over then. Chesterfield have huffed and puffed, had all the possession. Walsall were happy to let them have it. We'll be talking a bit about that in regards to possession with Notts County as well, because there's a bit to talk about, I think, with there. Yeah, they got that goal back. I mean, it was ever going to be a consolation from Armando Dobra, but I'm sure we'll get onto it. I mean, that skill. I mean, Albert Adoma, absolutely. He took McFadzean to the shops, didn't he? When he thought he was just going to be camping it in the corner for that cross and for the header at the back post for Levi Manchi. And yeah, Walsall are off to Wembley after the second half of the season they've had. I'd probably say, in fact, no, I will say over both games, I thought they deserved it.
Yeah, I'd thoroughly agree with that, to be fair. And actually, in that second leg, they came out the blocks pretty quickly. It was quite a frantic start to the game. I know there were no goals there, but they had their moments. I think once that sort of first 10 minutes had passed, I think things started to settle a bit, and Chesterfield sort of got into their rhythm very slowly over the course of the game. But I think all in all, really, Walsall have just managed the game really, really well. I mean, when Chesterfield did start to gather momentum, I think at one point in the second half, immediately you then have Simpkin down on the ground, faking an injury, all the rest of it. They played that game very, very well, and they put their bodies on the line where they needed to. They're very quick on the breakaway. Maybe could have done slightly better to kill it off sooner than they did, but ultimately they've done enough. And I mean, to be fair, the fashion they've done it in is brilliant. Obviously, a bit of a shame with the whole sort of celebrations at the end, but in terms of the nature of the victory, it's pure class.
Yeah, I think over the both games, for certainly the bits I saw, it was a little bit. I wouldn't say I watched the whole game or anything like that, but just a little bits. It sort of felt like the Walsall of old. And I mean that in the good thing is in the Walsall in the first half of the season where they were, murdering teams at times. They were happy for the other team to have the ball. They were quick on the break, deadly, and they took the chances when they came along. And I think there was certainly a lot of question marks going into the playoffs. I think you saw their run. They were the team that everyone fancied playing in the playoffs because they're so down in the dumps. And then on the final day, as much as they beat Crewe, it depended how much that goal at Bradford would have hurt them, because that could take the sting out of any side. Heading into the biggest few games of your season, it's enough to, I think, derail it actually. But they've surprised me. They've surprised me, and there wasn't quite the soft touch that I think, certainly myself, but a load of people sort of expected them to be. There was a lot of very good performances out there from Walsall, and it was the thing is, I feel on Chesterfield, I've seen a lot of criticism with, I think, how they've approached it, but I can't wait to get into Notts County because I have a lot of things to say in which I think the criticism over there is deserved. Although I think I probably should have seen more really. But I feel like they were just missing that little bit, and I think I can understand it in the fact that they've lost the game 4-1 on aggregate. I can understand it on that part. Because they've been soundly beaten in the end on that. But I think certainly in the second leg, I didn't really watch the first, but I found it hard to believe. I think it just didn't quite fall for them. Ben Peppel up front in particular was one I was keeping an absolute handful up front. But it's just the last little bit with the shot. There's a couple of slips in there. I just don't think. I think on another night it could have been a lot different. I think if we're looking at it from there, but I honestly think Walsall have played the perfect game, and that could do a lot going into Wembley. We know they've had their good times this season. We know they've had their bad times this season. But they're 90 minutes away from League One. If we're judging it, obviously from the first half of the season, absolutely deserve it. Going off it second half of the season, absolutely not. But it doesn't matter. Eventually, they're in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what's happened after 46 games. It's about these three. They've already gone over 2 hurdles and they've got 1 more to go. And ultimately, if they get promoted, then they get promoted. I don't think anyone can knock them for it. I think you probably can knock them for it for what they have done in the league since the turn of the year. But eventually, they've gone up, so they must have been doing something right. But no, I was really impressed. I was really impressed with Walsall, actually. I thought they nailed it, truth be told. I think with Chesterfield, I'll let you speak in a minute, but I think with Chesterfield as well, I've said last few weeks I've been critical of them. They've had injuries, they've had inconsistencies. Eventually, this is where I expected them to be, but they'll obviously be disappointed. They've obviously lost, but again, I think we've probably mentioned this with a few clubs. I've mentioned this with Grimsby. They've now set the barrier heading into next season, and it's a case of can they make it into the playoffs again, or potentially go one better and get automatic promotion. Chesterfield are very capable of doing it. They've got the players, they've got the money, they've got the manager. Paul Cook, we'll touch about him in a minute. Classy bloke. That's all I can say on him. Just a proper classy bloke. But we'll touch about a bit more in a bit, especially with his antics with his team right before kickoff. But their first season back in the league, they've made the playoffs. They've fallen short. I don't think it's the end of the world. At the end, they've given it a very good go, and it's certainly the benchmark now for them heading into next season. I just think on another day, if 1 or 2 more things maybe have fallen into place, it might have been a little bit different. I think it was as tight. I don't think it was a hammer. I actually don't think it was. I say a hammering. I actually don't think the margin is probably what I think it should be. Truth be told.
Well, yeah, I think the general performance level was actually there in that game. It's just in both boxes, Walsall were that little bit better, and ultimately that's the most important bit, isn't it? You're better in both boxes. Chances are you're probably going to win, but for Chesterfield, I mean, like I said, there were positives, as you say. As you said before, Pepple made a nuisance of himself. His finishing was woeful. Let's be real.
He's certainly improved since I've seen him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. But Hartlepool away in a couple of years ago in League Two, he came on as a sub, and it was genuinely one of the worst performances I've ever seen from a professional footballer. I remember when we signed. I feel like I'm digging into the lad unfairly. I don't have a problem with him. He's a nice lad, and he's clearly turned out to be a much better player than what he was back then. He's had a couple of loans under his belt since then. Did very well at Southend in non-league. But I remember the highlight reel that was made for him when he was over in Canada. It was literally about 3 minutes of like tap-ins and scruff shots that he scored. I want to try and find it, and I might try and post it. But it was genuinely the worst highlight package I've ever seen from a professional footballer. But no, look, he's had a decent spell at Chesterfield when he has been there, scored a few goals. But yeah, I think maybe his shooting I don't think was the greatest throughout. But again, it could have been completely different. He did slip over 1 or 2 times, as mentioned, and he gets himself about. Just didn't have that little bit.
Exactly. Like you say, the rest of his game was pretty much there. It was just missing those sort of final steps, really. And when it's not your day, it's just not your day. There's not much you can do. You can't fault the commitment or anything like that. It's just a case the quality wasn't quite there. Uh, but I mean, for most of the game, aside from the end, I actually thought defensively they were actually quite good as well. I mean, McFadzean for most of the game, I know he used to play for us, and he helped us get promoted to the championship and all the rest of it. So I do love him, but still, he's still got it. He was so good for most of the game. If you just ignore that one sort of play at the end where Adoma's totally done him. But aside from that, I still think he's probably one of the best centre backs in this division. And bear in mind, they've still got Dunkley to come back next season as well. Those two in the same defence could be quite scary. And with Chesterfield, it's more about the projects. And long term listeners will know I love talking about project teams. And you can still see what they're building. I don't think this is going to hinder them going into next season. They've got a clear project there, a clear vision. Yes, they didn't quite make it that final step, but at the same time, not necessarily the worst thing. It's their first season back. They've got lots of time to keep building on that. And I'd put them in a similar boat to Grimsby and to Colchester actually as well. You can see what the plan is, and you can see a future there. It just might take a bit more time to put those sort of final pieces in place.
Absolutely. Couple more talking points from the game. I think we did briefly touch on him. The Chesterfield players running out 5 minutes before kickoff. The Walsall players were in their tunnel, and they just jetted off straight down the tunnel, straight to the away, and then started clapping him. I know Paul Cook likes to do that. He got a bit of stick at Blundell Park actually when we played Chesterfield because he did it midway through. Someone like a little bit of a memorial service, but I don't think he meant it that way. But I think it was one of those in which if they ended up winning the game, it looks cool. It looks quite funny, but it's one of those. I think maybe at times if they've gone out and lost, it looks a bit silly. But I rate it for it. I rate it. It was certainly something different. Certainly to get the fans pumped and get them on side. I think they'd have had that anyway. Because it's football fans. I mean, you sort of go there. I think with me in the past, it almost felt like right, all week we're probably not going to turn it around, and then it hits you like a day before or 24 hours before, where it's like, right, okay, you know what, we can do this. That's sort of what I got from that, and I don't have a problem with that at all. I just thought, I thought that was quite amusing, but the pitch evasion wasn't quite amusing. Look, I'm not sure if this might come across as a little bit controversial or anything like that. Pitch invasions. I mean, there was still time to be played. It just makes you look stupid. And the game didn't finish until quite late. It was like 5 minutes in which a load of fans were on the pitch, fair few flares, and pyros and all that sort of stuff. I can understand it when a game is finished, but I think it was still clear that there was still a fair few minutes to be played. It just wasn't a good look, truth be told. And we'll probably get into it with Wimbledon with the fact they want a pitch invasion, but it just looked a bit daft. I get it. Your team has sealed the deal to get to Wembley. They sealed the deal at 3. They know they're booking their place in the final. Could they wait a few more minutes? Because the goal, if it was like the winning goal for them to win like 2-1 in aggregate, to be fair, I'd probably understand it a bit more. But the game was won already. I wonder what your thoughts are and whether if I'm talking silly or not, because I just think it was a bit ridiculous, really.
Oh yeah, no, I think it is poor form from the Walsall fans that did enter the pitch before the game had finished. I mean, end of the game, fair enough. Some fans will. That's just, that's just sort of knockout football. The rest of it, You can understand it's a key moment, your team getting to Wembley or whatever. But as you say, that goal, doing it on that goal when there's still time to be played and all the rest of it, it just that didn't make much sense. Like, and I mean, yes, it was a very good goal and it warrants a lot of celebration, but maybe not quite that much,
Like you can see some of the fans jetting off from the other side. I've seen a couple of clips from that.
Oh yeah,
Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just not great, and then it then causes all these other problems, with the Chesterfield side suddenly deciding, okay, we're standing around, we don't really want to be involved in this, let's just go back in, and then suddenly you've got to wait for everyone to leave, be like, okay, now you actually have to come back on, you have to come back on even though you've been defeated, you've got to finish the game because that's the laws and all the rest of it. And poor Will Grigg had to go over to the centre circle and just dribble around for a little bit. Like, it's just not a good look, is it?
Was it Paul Cook that was saying to the ref to end the game? I could be wrong.
I think it was. It would have made a lot more sense to just do that, but at the same time, the whole thing could have been avoided. Just if fans hadn't done that in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was just a bit ridiculous. Just one more thing as well. I think we have mentioned about Paul Cook, and I still want to mention his somewhat classiness going into the Walsall changing room at full time and congratulating them. I thought it was a really nice touch, but he has history with that. I think I saw a clip or a picture where they lost to Notts County in the National League playoffs, the one they lost on penalties, and he was straight in the Notts County changing room congratulating them. He's just a classy guy. I mean, he doesn't have to do that. Top bloke, very good manager. And there's not really much more you can say that. Just a touch of class. That I think probably maybe at times. I'm not saying that managers are classless, far from it, but I feel like at times I know that some things can be kept private and some not, but I feel like I'd want to see that a bit more from managers. I don't think it. I don't. Well, in games like that, I'm not saying league games. Like, let's say you've beaten a team 7-0. It's like you're going into a changing room. Yeah, hard luck, lads. Nothing like that. Just a bit over the top. But in games like that where you're playing for something, I just think it's a really nice touch.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's losing with grace, isn't it? Rather than coming out onto coming into the interviews with, oh no, this should have happened and this should have been different and all the rest of it. Actually, it's just a nice touch, and although that like a lot of us may skip that moment, actually, to those players, it probably does actually mean a lot because that is someone that's been in the industry a long time and they've taken their time to say, what, fair enough, you've done a good job there, and absolutely credit obviously to Walsall for winning, but also credit to Paul Cook for showing that touch of class, as you say.
Absolutely, top man. But yeah, Walsall are in the final, probably deserved in the end. Like I said, I thought they approached it really well. I thought Matt Sadler's got his spot on, which is something that I don't think he has done over the last few months in particular. I know the players haven't been immune from criticism for that either, but I do think that he's been getting most of the flack, and to be fair, he's probably deserved quite a lot of it. But I still think the players share that responsibility. But no, I thought they got his spot on over both games, and they were very worthy winners eventually, and are through to the final, in which they will play AFC Wimbledon, your favourite team. Yeah, look, they won the second leg 1-0, did Wimbledon, 2-0 on aggregate, winning both games by a goal to nil. We know that Riley Harbottle got the winner at Meadow Lane with the header. A little bit of a feisty affair with that one, with Jatta being red carded and missing the game. McGoldrick went off with an injury, which meant that he missed this game. Already Notts are up against it because they're missing two of their most dangerous players. I mean, they had Jody Jones still on the pitch, but in terms of what they've contributed this season, they've clearly been their two biggest threats. And I think they was always going to miss them, especially McGoldrick. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens for him because I think his contract's expired now at Notts. But I believe, having to listen to what Stuart Maynard has said, he's pretty much anticipating that he's going to be here at the club next season. But that's a discussion for another day. They won the second leg 1-0. The early goal from Josh Nuffield was enough. It's a really good finish, actually. At the time, I thought it was offside. I think the commentators said it was offside. By looking at that, I sort of agreed it at the time, but I have had a look back since, and I don't think he was actually. And he's just took that really well. I think it's caught Alex Bass by surprise. It's just lobbed over him, and you sort of got the impression from there, because Wimbledon have got that early goal, the fact that they've gone 2-0 up in the game, Notts County missing two of their most dangerous players, that it was falling into place quite nicely. And to be fair, I thought we can mention Notts, but again, I thought Wimbledon were another team that I thought played both the games terrifically well. I think on another day, I think they could have probably won that about 3 or 4-0. I think was it Brown that missed a chance, and a couple of Stevens had. Bass made a couple of half decent saves. It could have easily been a more convincing win on the day. Over the two games though, 2-0, I'd probably say that's convincing. Like Notts County. We'll talk about Notts. I want to talk about Notts County a little bit because I've got a lot to say. Not just on this playoff run, but also like the last month or so. But I want to give Wimbledon their credit because they're another side that have let Notts County have had all the possession. Well, in the second game in particular, if we're looking at the second leg, I think Notts had about 82% possession or something like that, or 72 or something. It was around that mark. They had a fair few chances, Notts. None of them got anywhere near the goal. And well, but again, Wimbledon, we know that resolute. They're defensively resolute. They're a tough nut to break down. And that didn't really look threatening in either game. I think there was a couple of instances at Meadow Lane in which I think Notts could have done better, but I don't think they were threatened at all. But as much as there's faults for Notts' end of that, I think Wimbledon have to have their credit. I think, they're another side that you can't complain about the result. I think they were worthy winners and they deserve to be in the final. If we're judging off both games, they were much the better team. Sold out Plough Lane. There was a very good atmosphere at the game. Thought the Notts fans were terrific. Actually, you could hear them for quite a large part of that game. There was no pitch invasion in that one. There was a clip online in which their mascot is crowd surfing with the Wimbledon fans, which I thought was pretty amusing. It's the same. That was the same mascot that produced one of my favourite clips where he's banging the bin instead of the drum, really, which is really amusing. I would do the chant, but it involves a swear word, so I won't do it. Of what we did towards the when we went there a couple of years back, when we did it there, when Grimsby were there. But yeah, I mean, it's not been easy for Wimbledon. It was never going to be easy, I think, for any team. But Wimbledon, they've somewhat effectively have had a playoff quarterfinal as well with Grimsby in this, which is sort of geared up for this game over 2 legs against Notts County. And 2 goals, 2 wins in that, 2 clean sheets. And they've booked their place at Wembley. And I think ultimately it's another side. It's deserved again. I thought Johnny Jackson I thought they've nailed it, to be quite honest.
Yeah, annoyingly, I've actually got to give them credit where it's due. They've defended their box really, really well. And, I mean, the shot map shows you that. Notts had 14 shots, 10 of them were from outside the box. So that kind of tells you everything. And ultimately, they've had bodies on the line. A lot of those shots were blocked. It wasn't just, your back three and your wing backs there. You had everyone behind the ball whenever was necessary. You had, obviously, Smith and that flying into challenges as well whenever were required to do so. And they just kind of stopped any plans that Notts had, really. I think they kind of knew they'd struggle without McGoldrick and without Jatta. And actually, I thought from Notts we saw a bit more of a narrow shape play. I felt like we saw Jody Jones coming inside quite a lot, but even he couldn't really find any sort of success sort of from the edge of the box either. And ultimately, if they can stop them there and then just play for counter attacks, because obviously Notts have to commit forward because they need the goal. And I mean, to be fair, Notts actually started that game pretty well. That they actually started on top in that those sort of first 5 minutes or so. But I mean, the game plan's worked immediately, hasn't it? 8 minutes in and one ball forward and goal. And yeah, it was actually onside because Nerfil was the player. There was two players there, and he was the one slightly behind. So yeah, I think the Notts defence was taken apart too easily from an offensive point of view, but from an AFC point of view, it's done really well. And they just kept sticking to that game plan. If it's working, you don't need to change it, and it worked the whole time. And as you say, I think the second half chances they had, they probably should have scored a lot more. Brown's had two chances that I honestly don't know how he's not scored from either of them. Stevens had that header that was well saved by Bass as well. If anything, the score flatters not. As annoying as it is to admit, that game could have been a whole lot worse for them than it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to get into Notts now because I've watched them a fair few times in the last month or so. In the league, I watched both of the games in this one. I watched both their playoff games. I remember watching the game against Salford, which they lost. And there was one other game. I can't quite remember which one it was, but I remember watching another game recently. And just judging off that alone, and they've been really poor. Like, I was frustrated at full time, actually, at the game. Yes, they've had loads of shots. They were so wasteful. I get it. You're always going to be up against it when two of your key players are missing the game. I get it. You're coming up against the side away from home with the best defense. It was always going to be an uphill battle, and I accept that. But my God, there could be a third leg of that, and they still wouldn't have scored. There could have been a fourth. There could have been a fifth. I've been really not impressed with Notts for a little bit. I've been not impressed with. I wasn't really impressed with Wimbledon for a little bit, but they've just turned it up at the right time where it's needed the most, and it's managed to get them through. At least you could see what Wimbledon were trying to do. Whereas Notts, I'm struggling. I'm really struggling, and I'm here again debating if Stuart Maynard is the man. Like, the players have had a go. They've huffed and puffed. And I get, there's circumstances that have taken out of Maynard's control. I just don't think he's the right man to take Notts County up. And I think a lot of Notts fans are starting to. I think they probably realise that for a little bit now. But I certainly saw a fair few yesterday in which, I think I mentioned it to you. I think with a let's take a random League Two club. Let's say, I don't know, like a Cheltenham or something. If he was to say he went there, he'd probably do a decent job. Like, he could I think it's more of a club that there's clearly expectation, of course, but not to the extent that Notts County have. Ultimately, I've seen this from a fair few Notts fans. The aim for this season for Notts County was automatic promotion. I believe they had a squad good enough for it. I've always believed that. They've had money to spend. They've got a good core of players. They've got players that are too good for this league. Like, McGoldrick's been ridiculous this season when he has played. He's had a couple of injuries. Jody Jones, I know, has had a little bit of an injury hit season. Jatta's goal return is very good. But ultimately they failed. They failed, and I think I honestly think they failed miserably in the end. I know there was a chance that they could have gone up automatically on the final day. Wouldn't have happened anyway because Bradford won. But I think they've fallen short by quite the distance. And I do look at the players. I do look at their manager. And I'm not sure if it's like, I don't know what it is, but I had a listen to Stuart Maynard. He was certainly speaking like he expects to be the Notts County manager come the end of the season. But he's under. I think he's under next. If he is the Notts County manager next season, he's under it, right under pressure. He's got to deliver. He's got to deliver. It's as simple as that. Seems like a very nice guy, and they've had good moments this season. Notts County. It's not all been bad. They have had good moments, but they've not been frequent enough, and they've been nowhere near enough to warrant a promotion spot. And I think we've certainly seen it come to roost in the last, certainly month or so. I don't think we mentioned how not Meadow Lane should be a tough place to go, and I feel like at times it hasn't been. I think I don't think they've been that incredible at home. Truth be told, throughout the season, I've got a lot of question marks over Notts at the minute, because I know that the fans clapped the players off yesterday, and I think probably in the moment you would have done, but eventually, when you look back at it, I think if I was to look back at it, it was poor. It was really poor, and it almost felt like a little bit of a waste of a playoff spot. I'd probably go as far to say that. I was dead critical of it because it was comfortable for Wimbledon. It was comfortable. I don't think there was at times I didn't really have to break a sweat. I was so disappointed in Notts. I was so disappointed. But I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Because they've, like I said, they've fallen short. They've fallen short, and I say fallen short. I think they've fallen quite large, actually, because the expectation at that club is huge. I know they've been in League Two for a couple of years now. I know that they've had the spell in non-league. It was difficult there. They've got ambitious owners. They've got on paper a very good squad. It's a top 3 squad. I'm not having anyone saying it's anything different. But yeah, I was really underwhelmed by him, and I was really quite angry actually for them, because I thought like at times I thought they were truly horrific. But one thing I did take a bit of an interest off was the amount of Bradford fans posting that Stuart Maynard shushing them. Hit a picture at Valley Parade when they drew 1-1 there like a month or so ago. That certainly come back to. I don't think he's done himself no favours with that either. I really don't. You're always running a risk when you do something like that. I don't think that would have helped. I don't know with Notts. I think if it was me, if I was a Notts fan, I genuinely would consider a new manager. I'm not sure what you think, because I just think they gave it a go at times. I don't think they gave it as much as a go as somewhat what I expected.
I think they were lacking in ideas. To put it simply, they can, as a possession side, they can do the get it through the thirds quite nicely. Well, for the most part, I actually think they were kind of off it a little bit anyway. I think there were far more misplaced passes than there should have been for a possession
didn't
team.
You say that Notts County is supposed to be this possession side? It was you that said they're not great at it, are they? And I can see why.
Yeah, from what I saw in that specific game, there were far too many simple mistakes, and I don't know. Even when they did sort of get into that final third, it kind of felt like, oh, what do we do here? This is the bit where McGoldrick has to do something or Jatta has to do something. We're not used to this, and they just didn't have any kind of ideas, so they'd slow it down. And when you slow it down, that's when possession football gets bad. I've seen it all season. There has to be, you have to be able to play with the tempo of the game, and they just didn't. It was just slow. And especially when you're up against a solid defense that is compact like that, you have to do more, essentially. Yes, they're coming out to you quickly, but you've got to move the ball a whole lot quicker. And yeah, I feel like they've. Oh, it's a point I've made about Notts actually over the course of the season. I feel like they rely on individual talent a hell of a lot.
I agree with that.
So when someone like McGoldrick goes missing, or a Jatta, or both combined, the whole team just collapses. So
there's not enough players that's taking the game by the scruff of the neck, because they're relying on individual quality from them. You've seen it a few times. especially from McGoldrick, some of the goals he scored, fantastic. I mean, I take the goal at Bradford, prime example, terrific goal. I don't think enough players are doing that, and I think that there's been times where they've been relying on Jasper and McGoldrick. I don't think Jones has played a hell of a lot this season, but we know the quality when he does play. I don't see leaders in that squad, actually.
Yeah, I'd say there's definitely something missing there. I know you made a comment about this being what should be a top 3 squad, but I actually don't see it just because of the lack of depth there. I mean, and if you look at the changes as well, which does partially show why, to me, Man United should maybe be in a little bit of trouble. Tactically, it just stayed the same for a lot of the game. You're looking at like for like changes: Jarvis in for Austin, Robertson in for Grant, and then Marias, who's not played in 4 knots for absolutely ages,
That's the
coming
thing,
in
was it
for
like, I think it was
for
like
Traore as well.
I think it was like 459 days. I think the commentator said the last time
Yeah,
he'd made
it
an
was
appearance for
something
Notts
like that.
County. I know that. I think he played against Wimbledon. Was it for Dagenham in the FA Cup, in which he scored? Was it this season? It might have been this season. That would have been a cool story. I can't lie. But
It would have been, but there was no
again,
tactical innovation there. Like it
he's
was
not
just
your
more of the
solution.
same.
He's not your solution, is he? If he's not played for 460 odd days, he's surely
There's a
not the
reason
answer.
for it.
Yeah, there's something up there. So yeah,
Yeah,
look,
they just really didn't have enough. And like I said, a lot of that does fall on the tactics for me. You have to be able to adapt. And if something's not working, you try something different. To me, it just felt like it was more of the same of, oh, it's not working for this person, so we'll bring on this person that has slightly different talents and maybe it'll work. And obviously it's not. And if anything, over the course of the game, they actually got worse. Um, and you could sort of see the life draining out of them almost. And I really think they actually need to be in for a bit of a big summer, whether that's not necessarily like a full rebuild or anything like that, but they need to find those missing pieces. And I mean, one of those could well be the manager for me.
Yeah, man. I do think there's questions, as I've said, and I will be interesting to see what they're doing. I know it's a different discussion for a different episode, but I think David McGoldrick's out of contract. I mean, he's certainly one in which you've got to be on your knees for. I mean, with him, I think he's a Notts County fan himself, so I think that's a must for his contributions this season. I know he's had a couple of injuries. I know Jatta's had championship interest in January. I think it'll be hard for them to keep hold of again. Although I think if you probably saw his record in the first leg, maybe Cubs might think twice. I don't know. There's maybe that argument, but he's had a very good season in terms of goal scoring. But yeah, I agree. I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think they've done some decent work. I think they need to do a lot more. Like George Abbott's had a very good season. He's going back to Spurs now, so you've now got to replace him. Yeah, there's a lot to do, but I feel like next season there's absolutely no excuses for Notts. I think they've got to be top 3. They've got to get promoted next year. I think probably on the back of this has got to be fuel. This has got to be fuel to ignite that fire to go again. I know that obviously when Maynard came in, they were still conceding a load of goals and all that, and they dropped down the table. But I think you've probably given the benefit of the doubt with how Luke Williams set it up his team. I wonder if Williams would go back. I'm not sure fit. I think in terms of sentiment and in terms of what he's done previously, I mean, it could be good. It'd certainly get them playing the right way. But again, he's probably just too kamikaze for me. But I think he's certainly one that Notts fans would welcome back with open arms. But I don't know. I don't know if they'd want to go down that route again. There's a couple of good managers out there in which Notts County. I think Notts County have the world power to bring in. I really do. They're a big club, big stadium. They're ambitious. They want to be in League One. I don't see why not. But yeah, I agree. I think there's got to be a shake-up one way or another at that club because it's gone on for a little bit now, in which I thought, actually, you know what? I don't think they are good enough to go up. And
I've never really been that convinced of them throughout the season. But I feel like we've sort of just taken a spotlight from Notts and just put it all on Notts instead of Wimbledon. Eventually, they've won, and you can't. And I thought they were terrific, as I've mentioned. They were quite happy for Notts to have the ball. They're all right. They're doing their bit. You know how sound they are defensively. No issues with them. Scoreline could have been different on the scoreline. Could have been more on another day. I won't say different, but they could have scored a few more on another day. But ultimately, they've done more than enough in the end, and that's what you need to do. And now that sets them up for the final. Now, Walsall against Wimbledon, it is. I can pretty much assure you that it'll be one hell of a hate watch from Luke Payne over here. In that one, but it's an intriguing final because I think you probably look at it from the both games that both these had. None of them wanted the ball in that game, and I think it'll probably be in the same in the final. I personally don't think there'll be a lot in it. I think it'll be a case of maybe one goal decides it. There is VAR in the final as well for League Two. I think they had it last year, I think, for the Crawley Crew final. But whether I agree with it or not, I mean, if you've seen the Premier League today, I'm not sure. If you've seen the Premier League at any point, really, I'm not sure on VAR. I just don't like it. But it's in there, and ultimately, one of those clubs will be in League One next season. In what is a very northern-based League One. Personally, I'd love to see Walsall go up because I quite like Wimbledon as an away day. If we're judging on it on that perspective, I think there's a lot. I know it's all cliche, but any team can win it on the day if they turn up. I get it. It's a final. It's at Wembley. It's probably going to be in front of a big crowd. Both teams are going to bring a fair few supporters. It's all about not making a mistake. I don't think that's the sort of vibe that I'm going to get from this game. I just can't see there being a hell of a lot in it. But we'd like to know what you guys think about that. I know we'll just come to look about that in a second for what you think. But yeah, that's another point. If there's any Walsall or Wimbledon fans listening to this or watching this that someone wants to get involved for a midweek episode, I don't know, put it in the comments in this, DM us on Twitter, and we'll probably look to do that. And I have a couple of ideas in mind for what we can do in the week because I really want to put a big emphasis on the final. But yeah, if you're listening, make sure you get involved if you want. But yeah, Luke, what do you think of it? Other than the fact I think that you're fully red that day. Matt Sadler Army, isn't it?
Well, I'm hoping that Ellis Harrison will somehow be fit and somehow score some kind of ridiculous hat trick or something. But no, yeah, I think this is gonna. Well, unless there is an early goal in this game, this has potential to be the most boring game of all time. At least in terms of playoff finals, anyway. As you say, neither of those teams want the ball. So I think we're looking at a very, very cagey affair. We're going to see a lot of it probably happening in the middle third. At some, I imagine there'll sort of be 5 or 10 minutes here or there where one team gets on top or whatever, and then suddenly sparks a counter attack, which is probably the few moments it will be interesting. But beyond that, you just can't see there being much in that game at all, really. And actually, I think the interesting thing will be to see how those teams actually approach it. Do they use the same lineups they've used before? Do they make some sort of tactical tweak? Should someone like Adoma come in for Walsall, someone that's got that little bit of trickery and can ride those challenges a little bit better? Because, I mean, both sides have that sort of physicality in defence, so trying to unlock those defences will be something that they've got to try and figure out. And then obviously you've got a very, very strong keeper for AFC in terms of Goodman as well. He's a very good shot stopper. So there's a lot of sort of little problems there to fix and to come up with solutions for mid-game. So it's going to be very, very tactical. That's for sure. But I think for a neutral, this could be a bit of a bad one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think as a game on the whole, it's not going to be a fun watch. I think if you're big on your tactics or stuff like that, it could be an intriguing watch. That's the sort of vibe I get from it. And like I said, I don't think it'll be separated by fine margins. I really do get that impression. I really don't think it'll be a thriller. But ultimately, both teams are going there to win. Both teams want to be in League One. And I kind of half want Wimbledon to be in League One to say that, you know, they're actually above MK Dons in the football pyramid. You know,
Walsall.
I love the fact you're holding on to that hope that, you know, in a couple of years' time they'll be heading to Truro. I see what you're doing.
Anyway.
I can see your argument there. I'd love it to happen, but look, I won't be about midweek. So it'll probably be the last time you'll hear from me before the final. But I'm looking forward to it. As much as I said it's not going to be an intriguing game, I'm fully expecting that. I am looking forward to it. It's a League Two playoff final. Obviously, that as much as there's going to be a winner, there's going to be a loser. You know, there's two more teams yet to be confirmed in League Two. One of them will, of course, be Wimbledon or Walsall. The others, it's down to 4 teams in the National League. Is it Oldham, York, Southend, Forest? Anyone but Forest Green, really. That'll do, mate. No one wants them. Truth be told, no one wants to go to them, and I'm not going to push the vegan thing. But it's just horrific. Look, I'm just happy that I was looking at the map again the other day of away days. And obviously Grimsby's just out the way from everywhere. Harrogate was our closest one to that. Before that, we were talking Accrington Stanley was in our top 3 closest away days, which was just grim. I'm glad that Chesterfield and Notts County are still stuck around, or have decided to stick around. Notts County in particular, it's my favourite away day, and we need a Hooters vlog, and I really want to upload it on here when we go. Then Hooters away, allay. Hooters again, allay. That's what I put, wasn't it? I messaged that to a few people, but no, absolutely over the moon that I get to go back to Meadow Lane next season. I can't lie. And Chesterfield, just for the fact that, you know, it's early down the road compared to all these trips to, well, the south and London and, you know, the west. There's a fair few teams in the west with Shrewsbury and Crewe and all them sort of places, Tranmere but yeah, God forbid Barrow. But yeah, I'm just waffling now. And I think we'll probably end it there. Thank you guys for listening as always. If you are new around here, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. Make sure you go and download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. As I said, if there's any Walsall or Wimbledon fans wanting to get involved in a bit of a preview ahead of the final in the week, just let us know. DM us on Twitter or comment on this video. We'll be delighted to have you on. And make sure you, and like I said, make sure you go and listen to the Paul Farman interview over on the League One Lowdown. A very good in-depth interview with now the former Barrow goalkeeper, who was sure to be a pickup. I think he'll be a pickup for any decent League Two side this season. This summer, if there's any clubs that need a goalkeeper, I mean, we certainly do at Grimsby. But would we want to take someone who used to play at Lincoln? I say that like we didn't sign Jordan Wright from Lincoln, so that sort of makes that point a little bit redundant. So we'll ignore that. We signed Charles Vernon from Lincoln, didn't we, as well? Yeah.
Yeah, your point's a bit gone a bit there.
Yeah, I don't know, just Lincoln in it. I'm still quite upset that Scunny won today. They managed to get out of a pub league. But yeah, local football for you around Lincolnshire. Look, we'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening as always. Thanks for the support. A few more pods to come. You know, a couple more stuff in the pipeline. Now we've got a ranking of seasons or something like that. I know Luke's got a quiz or something. A couple of things to do before the summer. We'll have a look at the final. After when that's played, I think that's it. I think there's one or two things probably keep an eye out on. And of course, if you subscribe, you'll be the first to know. We'll leave it there. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one.